You are not your body. That thing you call your body is a costume worn by your essence, the spirit. So you are not your body. Imagine a body. This body has a beard. It has genitalia. Or, let's be straight. This body has a penis. There's another body. That other body has a vagina. And what do? We say the body with the penis is a man. And the body with the vagina is a woman. It's not God who said that. It's us.
As far as the North Pole is from the South, we are bridging the knowledge gap from centuries past. We inspire you to find your true north. From Timbuktu to Alexandria, from the city of Johannesburg to New York, from the Zulus to the Dogon people, we are disrupting the knowledge economy. We are Sir Max Network.
The world is like a marketplace, weighing value against value. In fact, the world transacts on value because every day you meet people who have what you need and who need what you have. Now, if you are going to provide value to the world, you are going to become extremely successful. Now, one person can say no to you. One institution can say no, but certainly not everyone is going to say no to you. If you want work, you want a deal, or if you want a position, you first need to ask yourself, what value am I bringing in that organization? Because, ladies and gentlemen, life is a transaction of value. Life is an exchange of ideas. So instead of focusing on what you want to get from the world, rather focus on yourself and ask, what value do I have? And how can I serve it to the world in return for a remuneration? You need to ask yourself, what value do I have and how can I improve that for me to become one of the best people in my field? Ladies and gentlemen, it's such a great honor once more and a great privilege that we are hosting the best of the best. He's the wisdom keeper of our time. He's a nucleus through which we connect to the world. He's a seer of our generation. He is in the upper echelons of the intellectual capital today. He's a storyteller, an amazing orator. He's a shaper of human consciousness. And those who don't know him refer to him as a financial mail-rated #1 political analyst in the world. Gogo Aubrey Matshiqi is on the show. Thokoza Gogo.
Tamaku.
How are you doing, Gogo?
I'm doing well, thank you. Of course, you can always do better.
Yes.
But I'm doing well.
I'm so happy to be in conversation with you today. I said this to you off air and I want to say it again. We appreciate you gracing our platform because it's people like you who will make this platform to be one of the best in the world. And your selflessness to come here, we do not take it light and we're so grateful.
Thank you very much. I don't take that for granted. I take it as a blessing to be appreciated while I'm still alive. So thank you very much.
We give thanks, Gogo. We had our conversation last time, and one of the frequently asked questions that I thought maybe that's where we should start today is people are asking, why is he called a Gogo when he is a male?
It's because I'm a lady.
So I promised them to say, I'm going to ask Gogo to take that out of, because in our society, it's not usual. Normally when you say Gogo, it's when we refer to the female. Can you please expand on that, Gogo?
Well, I'm called Ugogo because my guiding spirit is a feminine spirit. Others are called umkhulu because their guiding spirit is a masculine spirit. But there's a wise man who says to me, Gogo, I see that here in Gauteng, here in Joburg, they call you Ugogo. Tina, we call you Igogo.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, what is Igogo? Because I had never heard of that. He says, ngesiXhosa, Igogo is a seer. So I am Ugogo or Ligogo, or I am Igogo elingugogo.
Wow, wow.
But let's go back to Ugogo.
Yeah.
So I'm called Ugogo because my guiding spirit is a feminine spirit. And I said, you will find women who are izangoma, who are called umkhulu, because the guiding spirit is masculine. Strictly speaking, though, the spiritual realm is a non-gendered realm. So, strictly speaking, to the extent that the spiritual realm is a non-gendered realm, you should not call me Ukok. But I understand why we speak in gender terms. Spirit has no gender, and therefore the spiritual realm has no gender. But imagine what would happen if, let's say, your grandmother or your grandfather, who is now spirit, came to you as spirit. The likelihood is that you would not recognize them.
100%.
Why? Because of the limitations of the human mind. The human mind is limited. The human mind tends to reduce things to a size it can understand. So, because our ancestors, izinyanya zethu badimu, understand the limitations and the limits of the human mind, they then meet us halfway and come to us in a way our limited human minds will recognize. So your grandfather, or let me say the spirit of your grandfather, will come to you in a way your limited human mind will recognize. Because if the spirit of your grandfather came to you as it is, you would not be able to recognize it.
Is that also why when you go to sacred places, mountains, caves, the rivers and the seas, there are things that you see, but they appear in a form, in an animalistic form. Maybe I'll say a dove, maybe a horse, maybe. Could that also be the ancestors or the great spirits appearing to you in a way that your limited mind will comprehend or recognize?
I will give you two answers. The first answer is yes. Spirit will come as something you will recognize. Like, as you say, a bird, for instance.
Yeah.
Or the bird may not be spirit at all. It may just be a sign, just a sign of spirit saying, I am here with you. So it may come in the form of an animal, for instance. You and I, for instance, let's say we go to the river, and then a crocodile appears. And it appears in a river where there are no crocodiles. We will know, you and I, that our people Bakwena
Yes.
are here with us. So that crocodile may not be spirit, may just be a symbol.
A symbol.
Representing the presence of spirit at that time.
What a beautiful prelude to this conversation. There's an elephant in the room, Gogo.
It's not spirit.
It's a symbol. We normally talk about a shift in global consciousness. It's happening throughout the world. It's happening in Africa. It's happening everywhere. It has been happening. And I wonder how many people are aware of it. It is the rise of woman power. To what others may say, towards a dying patriarchy. We see it in many spaces. Politics, we see the rise of women power. In social spaces, we see it. In business, we see it. In sports, we're seeing it. Everywhere, we are seeing it. I'm not sure whether a patriarchal world is blind to this rise. That if we do not pay attention, we are running a risk of conflict, of wars. But I'm going to allow you to expand on it and contextualize it for us. This rise of women power and what it means to us.
Well, let me go back to what we discussed last time I was here. I spoke about an ocean.
Yes.
An ocean of consciousness. And I said, we, to the extent that an ocean is made up of drops of water, we are drops of that ocean. In other words, that ocean is consciousness. Your consciousness, my consciousness, are two drops of that ocean. I said we are part of the whole. That ocean that is consciousness is the whole. And our consciousness, your consciousness, is part of that whole. My consciousness is part of that whole.
Yeah.
But the whole is part of us. So think of it this way. So I'm saying this ocean is consciousness. But what is interesting about this ocean, this consciousness, is that the individual drops of that ocean are like the ocean itself. And the ocean itself is like the individual drops. So we, as individual spirits, are part of that ocean of consciousness, or a part of that ocean that is consciousness. And that ocean is part of us. Now, if we look at it that way, we must also remember something else that you and I discussed the last time. Now, of course, Mkulu, those who don't watch the CMX network now know what they've been missing.
Yeah. True. The gem, the best of the best.
So, if you have not been watching CMX, all we must say to them is cha cha. And welcome.
Yes.
So, I say to you that the two of us must remember this. I said, what is in front of me, this body, is not Ndleleni Makongo, known to us as CMX. I am not Aubrey Matshiqi. Aubrey Matshiqi is my identity, is a construct of the mind. Ndleleni Makongo, CMX, is a construct of the mind. We are not what we identify with. We are not our identity. So that's the first thing, which means there is no one who is Xhosa. There is no one who is Zulu. There is no one who is Sotho or Pedi or Venda. There is no one who is South African. South Africa is a construct. It's a story. America is a construct. It's a story. No one is American. No one is a man. No one is a woman. Why am I saying that? Our essence is spirit. We are spirit. I've already said that spirit is genderless, is non-gendered. But I'm saying something else. You are not your body. That thing you call your body is a costume worn by your essence, the spirit. So you are not your body. Now, imagine a body. This body has a beard. It has genitalia, or let's be straight. This body has a penis. There's another body. That other body has a vagina. And what do? We say the body with the penis is a man. and the body with a vagina is a woman. It's not God who said that. It's us. Of course, I do take into account that when we are being religious, we put words in God's mouth. So, if I am correct in saying you are not your body, what we call a woman is not its body. What we call a man is not its body. Because that we call a man is a spirit. It is not a body. That which we call a woman is a spirit. It is not a body. Therefore, you can't say the spirit is a woman. And you can't say the other spirit is a man. There's no man. There's no woman. We are not our bodies, and we are not the things our minds have constructed. That you are umkhosa is the thing that the mind has constructed. The identity you have become attached to. That you are a man is the thing that your mind has constructed. That you are male or masculine is the thing that your mind has constructed. But that is not you. That you are female, that you are feminine, is the thing that your mind has constructed. That's your identity. A product of the mind. Not even the product of your own mind. In many cases, the product of the minds of others. The mind decides. You have a penis, you are a man. And I'm saying, no. You are not your body. And you are not a particular organ in your body. The mind has decided, because you have a vagina, you are a woman. No. You are neither your body, nor are you reducible to a single organ in that body. All of us are spirit. Therefore, let's say you are a woman and I'm a man, or because I'm Gogo, let's say I'm the woman. And we go back to that ocean of consciousness. Am I different from the other drops in that ocean of consciousness? In that ocean that is consciousness? No, I'm not. Are you, as a spirit, different from other drops in that ocean that is consciousness? Are you, as what we call a man, in terms of your essence, different from other drops in that ocean of consciousness? If the answer is no, That means neither the woman nor the man is different from the other drops in that ocean of consciousness. And therefore, if that is correct, I am not different. The woman is not different from you as a spirit. And therefore, the idea that there is a man there and a woman here, that separation is artificial. It is a creation of the mind. It is not real. It is artificial. But the constructs are real. We do live in a world in which we say there is a man, there is a woman. We do live in a world where we say there is something feminine and something masculine. Now remember that reality is socially constructed. This is where I would invite those who are watching to go and read about the social construction of reality. In fact, there is a book called The Social Construction of Reality. The idea is that what we call reality is socially constructed. I will go further. Yes, it is socially constructed. Socially constructed by the mind. So that is something feminine or masculine is a construction of the mind. And where we started, we said the mind is limited. Therefore, anything that is a product of the mind is itself limited, which means our conception of reality, which is a social construct or construction of the mind, is itself limited. So our conception of reality is limited because it is a product of that which is limited, the mind. So that is something you call a man and a woman, or male or female, feminine or masculine.
Okay.
It's a social construct of the mind. But
Yeah. If I was presenting my PhD thesis and come with the topic that I've given you, you would have destroyed my topic. I would have to go back and write.
Actually, I'm about to build your topic.
Okay, go.
So we have socially constructed reality, which means the construct is real in terms of our conception of reality. So, in the world that our minds have constructed, there are men, there are women, there's something feminine, there's something masculine. And here, let us build your question.
Please.
You've
destroyed it completely, so let us pick it up.
Before I proceed, let me say, Kimaswa.
No.
I apologize.
Wow.
So let's build your topic now. You may be familiar with the work of Walter Mignolo. We talked about coloniality the last time.
Yes.
For me, the person, the scholar, who has influenced me a lot, or the most actually, when it comes to my understanding of coloniality is Walter Mignolo. Walter Mignolo, when he talks and writes about coloniality, talks also about the colonial matrix of power. And the colonial matrix of power has certain dimensions. First, you have knowledge and subjectivity. So when you talk about knowledge and subjectivity, we're talking about meaning.
Mm-hmm.
You have gender and sexuality.
Yes.
You have authority. You have economic power. These are the different dimensions of the colonial matrix of power. Now remember what we said coloniality is about in our last conversation. And again, now you know we must watch CEMEX.
Yeah. To get a full grasp.
So we said coloniality is a logic, a racist, white, supremacist logic, according to which those who are white are superior. In what ways are they superior? We'll isolate two. They are ontologically superior. And those who are not white are inferior. And therefore, they are ontologically inferior, meaning, unlike their white counterparts, those who are not white, those, and here you can include those who are black, mm-hmm. and those who are African, those who are not white are not human. Because according to this logic of coloniality, they are ontologically inferior. Secondly, those who are not white are epistemologically inferior. They lack the capacity to create knowledge. In other words, they cannot think. So those who are not white cannot think. And because they cannot think, they lack the capacity to grasp and create knowledge. But now, let's focus on this particular dimension of the colonial matrix of power. Gender and sexuality. Mm. Now, remember, that the colonial matrix of power, that conception of reality tells us that what props up coloniality are two things: racism and patriarchy. Mm. Those are the two things that prop up coloniality. Today, we're here to talk about the second one, patriarchy. In each case, or in both the case of racism and patriarchy, if we look at coloniality through the lens of the colonial matrix of power, what does it do? You reduce human beings to their bodies. Bodies that have no spirit. And then you create a hierarchy So you classify these bodies in terms of race and in terms of gender. In other words, you classify these bodies through looking at them as members of a particular race when you look at their bodies. And you create a hierarchy, a racial hierarchy. You look at these bodies in terms of gender, and then you create a hierarchy, another hierarchy. If you combine the two hierarchies, the racial or racist hierarchy and the patriarchal hierarchy, what does the hierarchy look like? At the top is God. Just below God is a man.
Of a certain color.
A white man.
Yeah.
And below that body of the white man, in that hierarchy, is the body of the white woman. Then the black man.
Black man.
Then the black woman. That's the hierarchy. And you can extend that hierarchy into other areas of existence, like you create an epistemic hierarchy. So God knows everything, omnipotent and omnipresent. God knows everything.
But also, does it make God male, according to the colonial matrix of power?
Do you now agree that we're building up your topic?
Yeah, no. But I need to go more and research and start over again.
You are right.
Yes.
So, in fact, your question is very interesting in this way. So, God is a man. And a man is like God. So, when you resist the colonialism and oppression of the white man, you are fighting God. Because the white man is a symbol of God, is a physical or human representation of God. So if you want to see God, look at the white man. That's God.
True.
But if you are a woman, black or white, if you want to see God, just look at the man. If you are married, look at your husband. That's God. So in this hierarchy, as I said, you have God, and God is a man, and then you have the man, who is
white,
an embodiment of God, and is the white man. Then you have the black man, then you have the black woman. So your question is critical. Because if we move to feminism, there comes a time when the author of the book, The Color Purple, Alice Walker, introduces an idea. She calls it womanism. What is she trying to do? She and others who are black and who are women after her embrace this term, this idea, womanism, to distinguish their feminism, the feminism of those who are women but black, from the feminism of those who are white. Womanism, in their understanding, proceeds from the understanding that intersectionality is important. That in the feminist struggle, there is a time when there is no recognition of the difference between the victim of patriarchy, who is white, and the victim of patriarchy, who is black. Because the black woman is oppressed also in class terms. The black woman is also a victim of a white supremacist logic. So in South Africa, we say women suffer from different kinds of oppression. They are oppressed as blacks. They are oppressed as women. And they are oppressed and exploited as members of the working class. So a black woman in South Africa suffers from triple oppression. So womanism is an attempt by black women to say yes, to the extent that we must unite with white women against patriarchy as a system of oppression, because patriarchy is a system of oppression. For us to unite with white women in our struggle against patriarchy as a system of oppression doesn't mean we must ignore the differences between us and white women. What distinguishes us is the fact that as black women, we're not only victims of patriarchy, we are also victims as members of a particular race, therefore victims of racism, but we are also victims of a particular class. We suffer capitalist exploitation. Now, of course, another thing they were responding to is the reality that some of the feminists who are white were themselves racist, did not challenge coloniality. In fact, benefit. In fact, the white woman enslaves the black woman. So, we can come to this question from that angle.
And in fact, it can even go further, Gogo, to say, even the black woman against the black woman, that's how far the discrimination has gone. Where a black woman, in terms of classism, it has gone even to that lower level.
Yeah, that's true. That even when you look at black women, the question of intersectionality does arise. You may be looking at two women in terms of race.
Yes,
They are both black. But in terms of class, they are different. And that is why sometimes as a woman, what you might do, you will foreground being a woman. In other words, you will foreground gender to gain a particular advantage. but not foreground class. Because if you foreground class, you advantage a woman of the same race who is not of the same class as you. But to come directly to your question about this emerging consciousness,
Yes.
I have been arguing for some years now that the 21st century is not just the African century. I've also been arguing that the 21st century is the century HaaK, meaning it is the century of the divine feminine. Let's start with the first. We did say in our last conversation that all 8 billion of us on this planet have common ancestors from Africa. So when I say the 21st century is an African century, I am saying it is time for the whole world to reconnect with its essence. And what is its essence? Its essence is African. I am saying it's time for the whole world to reconnect with its Africanness. So that's the first thing I'm saying when I'm saying the 21st century is the African century. It is time, and I say the whole world, and I'm including Africa, another construct of the mind, Africa.
Yeah.
So I'm saying even Africa must be part of this movement to reconnect with our Africanness. Because there is a lot about us, even those of us who are on the African continent that is not African, or that is un-African. We can blame coloniality and colonialism. We can blame westernization. I was talking earlier to you about how if you see clashes, for instance, in Cameroon and Nigeria, you hear that Christians were burning mosques and Muslims were burning churches in battles between Muslims and Christians, both of whom are African. What is the difference between them? The difference is this. You have Arabized Africans who are Muslims. If you look at Darfur, for instance, in Sudan, the Sudanese who are regarded as black Africans have suffered the oppression of Sudanese who are Arabized. So the first thing I'm saying is that even those of us on the continent need to reconnect with their Africanness, because there is an extent to which, maybe because we're Arabized in some cases, maybe because we're Europeanized and Westernized in some cases, we have become distant from our essence, our Africanness. And therefore, even those of us on the continent must reconnect with our Africanness. And the second thing, when I say this is the century of the divine feminine, I am saying all of us, 8 billion of us, must reconnect with the divine feminine.
Would you then say, Gogo, in the colonial matrix of power, religion was also used?
Yes.
It could be one of the elements, the Darfur example that you made. I mean, I don't even need to go to Darfur. In a society where you have 2 black Africans, the other one is Muslim, the other one is Christian.
Yeah.
You find that there are certain spaces where a black African who's Muslim will have an upper social class than the one who's Christian, based on the area where they operate. So religion as well can be taken, or it can be one of the colonial elements of colonial matrix of power.
Well, that which I call the Arabized African has a particular religion, Islam, imposed on them. That which I call the Europeanized African has a particular religion imposed on them, Christianity. And yes, there is a link between racism and religion. And yes, there is a link between patriarchy
and religion.
So we have seen this. During colonialism, in the process of colonization, we have seen the Christian colonizer quoting parts of the Bible to justify colonialism, to justify the logic of coloniality, that those who are not white are not human. In fact, the idea that those who are human have dominion over that which is human, not human, is one of the devices used to oppress. Because remember, coloniality says those who are white are human, those who are not white are not human. And therefore, who must have dominion over that which is not human? The human. And the human is white. But also, you can take this further. If you look at it from the perspective of the colonial matrix of power, you look at the dimension of gender and sexuality. You create a hierarchy using that dimension of gender and sexuality. Those are human are white men or men. Those who are not human are those who are not men. Those who are not women, men are those who are women. So men are human. Women are not human. And again, religion has been used both in the case of the Europeanized African and the case of the Arabized African to create a particular positionality for the woman. Because in both cases, the idea that a woman is not human, and the idea that that which is human is that which is a man is reinforced. Meaning, even in the church, even in these religions, women and men are not equal. They can't occupy the same position. So in a sense, if we look at the religions have embraced the social construct of gender. But they are able to use religious belief
to justify it.
to justify their reliance on this social construct of gender. And therefore, their reliance on this social construct when it comes to the oppression of women.
Okay, Gogo, would you please talk about this rising consciousness of divine feminine? Can you please expand on that?
Well, this rising consciousness of the divine feminine is part of the broader process of a shift in consciousness that I said the last time is happening not only in our world, is happening in an interplanetary sense. So it's not happening only on planet Earth. It's happening across planets and across universes. Because remember, this ocean we call consciousness is everywhere. Which means you can think of all planets. You can think of the multiverse and beyond. All of it is part of this ocean of consciousness. And the divine feminine is part of this ocean of consciousness. Now, you and I, maybe 3 years ago or 4 years ago, we had a discussion on God.
Yes. The African understanding
Yes.
of God.
Now, let me say something I did not say at the time. Without the feminine quality, God is incomplete. Without the masculine quality, God is incomplete. But I don't want to say God is both feminine and masculine. Because there are two things I don't want to do when I talk about God. I don't want to humanize God. God is not human. And therefore to say God is the Father is to humanize God. Some will say God is a woman. I've heard women who say, those who regard themselves as radical will say God is a woman, but God is not a woman either. To say God is a man or to say God is a woman is to humanize God. God is not human. So that's the first thing. I believe we must not humanize God. Secondly, when you say God is incomplete without the feminine quality, and is incomplete without the masculine quality, because you want to say God is both the feminine, or is a unity of the feminine and the masculine. That may be an improvement on the argument that God is incomplete without the feminine quality, and God is incomplete without the masculine quality. So it's an improvement on that argument. But not much of an improvement, because you are now reducing God to two dimensions, the feminine and the masculine.
Okay.
And God is much more than that.
Yeah.
Is much bigger than that. So to say God is a unity of the feminine and the masculine is to reduce God to two things. Is to make God smaller than what God is.
I want to quote Baba Credo Mutwa, and you will take it from there, Gogo.
The mother mind.
Yes. He says, we must return to women the dignity that used to be held by them. Many, many centuries ago, women used to be worshipped. Credo Mutwa. Can you please expand on that and that understanding?
I understand what he means when he says women were worshipped. I am not sure that any human being should be worshipped. But I understand what he means. Because I have argued that the womb resides in what we call a woman. The womb is a sacred space, and therefore that in which the womb resides is sacred. The woman resides in what we call a woman, and therefore a woman is sacred. That's what I've argued. Therefore, when I look at gender-based violence is a violation of that which is sacred, a woman. So, reconnecting with the feminine divine and the divine wisdom of the feminine means we who are called men, who through things such as gender violence, patriarchy, and so on. Remember, patriarchy is a violation of that which we call a woman. And if you agree with me that that which is woman is sacred, it is therefore a violation of that which is sacred. So patriarchy is not only a system of oppression, but it is a violation of that which is sacred, woman. And therefore, one of the imperatives is to reconnect with both the divine feminine and the divine masculine. But when I say this, people think I'm talking about us reaching for that which is external to us. The starting point is to go inside to yourself, a spirit. You, amongst other things, are a unit of both the feminine and the masculine. Because of the social construction of gender, you have become socially conditioned as a man to foreground the masculine and not the feminine. And as a woman, you have been socially conditioned to foreground the feminine and not that which is masculine. Words. We who call ourselves men are socially conditioned to believe that we are superior to those we call women, and women are inferior in relation to us. That is a function of social conditioning. Now, Ubaba Credo says in one of his interventions, we must foreground the mother mind. For me, the mother mind is the feminine divine wisdom. In other words, Ubaba Uvusamazulu was asking us to connect or reconnect with those qualities of the feminine divine. But we make the mistake of thinking he was talking only to men. He was talking to both men and women. If I'm wrong, it means I am just taking what he said, and I'm moving it a step further. Yeah. So I've already said we are socially conditioned as men to foreground the masculine and not the feminine. And women are socially conditioned to foreground the feminine and not the masculine.
Has the entrenchment of patriarchy into religion or spirituality caused so much damage to a point that when a consciousness is rising or people are being awakened, they automatically want to reject the masculine element of God because it has become so ugly, so abusive, so violent?
Again, I will say what I said to you last time. It is not my intention to disrespect anyone.
Yes, you said that.
It is not my intention, therefore, to disrespect any religion. And let me make an invitation. I may have made it the last time we spoke. I'll say two things, and then I'll proceed. One, I have from time to time spoken about the need to free ourselves from the known. Two, from time to time, I have tried to remind people that words are not what they describe. That the word dog is not a dog. The word stone is not a stone. If you have four people in front of you and you utter the word dog, in their minds, do they have the same dog? No, they don't. If you utter the word stone, in their minds, do they have the same stone? If you say feminism, in their minds, do they have the same idea? if you say God, in their minds, do they have the same thing? No. And this brings me to God and the God of our creation. So there are things that we project on God and we say they are God. For instance, you project your hatred for gays and lesbians and you say it's God, when it is your projection, a projection that is socially constructed. So there is God. So in my mind, there is God and there is the God of our creation. The God of our creation hates women. The God of our creation believes women are inferior. The God of our creation believes women cannot play certain roles in the church, cannot be priests, for instance. A woman cannot be the Pope, for instance. Is that God? No, that's the God of our creation. The God of our creation hates what we hate.
Because we created him.
The God of our creation hates Muslims, hates Jews, hates Christians. In India, the God of our creation hates Muslims, hates Hindus, hates Buddhists, and so on. The God of our creation, relevant to what we're talking about, regards women as inferior. And therefore, the God of our creation dictates the roles that should be played by men and the roles that should be played by women. More importantly, the God of our creation assigns certain roles only to men, others only to women. By the way, the same applies to our ancestors. Badim is Nyanya, Amatlos. We have Amatlos and Amatlos of our creation. We have Badimu and Badimu of our creation. Badimu of our creation believe in what we believe because of what we project on them. In the same way that we project certain things on God, things that are socially constructed. Badimu of our creation assign certain roles to women, only to women, and assign certain roles only to men. The God, Badimu is the Nyanya of our creation, dictate that there are things women must never do. Dictate that there are certain things men must never do. Dictate that there are certain things women must do. There are certain things men must do. So part of the problem for me, you then have a socially constructed reality that consists of a fusion of the God of our creation and Badimu, Amatlos, is Nyanya of our creation. The impact of that fusion is quite devastating on those we call women.
That's why Frederick Nietzsche says, God is dead. because it's your creation.
Well, if you are a listener of heavy metal, one of my favorite albums is an album that I think was recorded by Black Sabbath called God is Dead. It's a question. It's not a statement.
Mm-hmm.
But I know why it had to be a question. Because if it had been a statement, I think those albums would have been burnt in the streets by those who felt offended. Personally, I believe in God.
Okay.
Therefore, personally, I don't believe God is dead. But I believe something else.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the idea of God is intellectually sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Please hold that one, Gogo, because I want us to do a whole episode just on God.
Yes.
I've noted so many questions here. I think it will be a beautiful, beautiful episode. What do you say to someone who argues the way Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela said, and I quote, she said, the overwhelming majority of women accept patriarchy unquestionable and even protect it?
I would amend that statement and say there are women who accept patriarchy uncritically, because they are. I call it patriarchy in a dress. In the same way that not all purveyors of whiteness as an ideology, as a way of being in the world, as a way of seeing, in the same way that not all purveyors of whiteness are white. Some purveyors of whiteness are black people, particularly the black middle class. In the same way, some purveyors of patriarchy are women. But remember, we spoke about the colonial matrix of power, subjectivity and knowledge, which speaks to meaning. How is meaning created? That's one. What is knowledge? Who knows? Who does not know? What we know is that those who regard themselves as those who know, or are regarded as those who know, want to reproduce what they know to be what is known by everyone. Through education, religion, as I said, popular culture, and so on. For instance, there's an extent to which I don't care for hip-hop or a particular kind of hip-hop. I don't know whether you listen to Ashla Raka.
Not quite.
So if you listen to Ashla Raka, she has a track in which she critiques certain kinds of hip-hop. And these are kinds of hip-hop that attach the same status to cars, money, houses, bling,
sexuality,
but not this kind of spiritual bling.
Yes, bling bling.
Women, all these things have the same status. So They objectify women. They even commodify women. Now, where does that come from? I said two of the underpinnings of this logic of coloniality are racism and patriarchy. So you must reach a point where victims of racism assimilate into the logic of racism. Victims of patriarchy assimilate so much that they become uncritical of it. That patriarchy has become so commonsensical that they become unconscious purveyors of patriarchy, what I call patriarchy in address. The same applies to
Whiteness,
racism.
yeah.
So Umamuini was speaking to that reality. But even that uncritical attitude is a product of the devices patriarchy uses to make some women uncritical of patriarchy. Now, one of the devices is education. We must talk more deeply about education as a reproductive device. Education is not neutral. Education is ideological. It is one of the means by which we reproduce dominant class, gender, cultural, religious, and other relations in society. So for me as a teacher, one of the biggest problems I have is the extent to which education is a device for the reproduction of problematic gender, cultural, religious, class, race, and other relations. And there is an extent to which education is a device for the reproduction of patriarchy and the creation of human beings we call women and men who are uncritical of patriarchy. In the end, what we must fight for is the creation of a society in which both men and women are critical of patriarchy. Now, of course, I hear people saying Africans were never patriarchal. Patriarchy came with the colonizer. In other words, some of them take what I'm talking about, the colonial matrix of power, and its underpinnings of racism and patriarchy, and they say, because colonialism came from the West,
it came
the
with
colonizer came from the West. Therefore,
this virus.
Essentially, this virus we call patriarchy is a Western virus that was not there in Africa before the colonizer came to Africa. Now, for me, that invites certain questions. One, what were gender relations like before the colonizer came? You have just quoted Ubaba Vusamazulu says, women were worshipped. Is that statement representative of the total reality women were exposed to? I don't think so. I don't think so. And therefore, I am not sure it is completely correct to argue that patriarchy
came with the
colonizer. There was no patriarchy. Now, I am willing to embrace the idea that even before the colonizer came, there was a socially constructed conception of gender which was not European. And because it was not European, you can't call it patriarchy. So if you say patriarchy speaks to a social construction of gender whose essence is European, and therefore the social construction of gender outside Europe cannot be called patriarchy, and therefore the social construction of gender in an African setting cannot be called patriarchy. I'm willing to have that conversation.
Yeah.
But for me, this emerging consciousness at its broadest levels and the emergence of what I call the divine feminine wisdom has implications. It means the world, the multiverse, and what lies beyond it. This ocean of consciousness I was talking about is shifting. One of the shifts is in terms of this divine feminine wisdom. Now, let's not confuse the rise of women, let's say, in positions of power and so on, and influence, to be this shift. You can have women becoming more influential in politics, in the economy, and so on. You can have that coinciding with a lack of consciousness. So that on its own does not mean there's a shift. But that is a challenge for us to work actively for that shift. In other words, sometimes when you talk about consciousness and the shift in consciousness, I get the idea people talk about a shift in consciousness in the way we can talk about an aeroplane in autopilot. It's not autopilot. There must be struggles we engage in to effect that shift.
So having 50% of women, or even more than 50% of women represented in parliament, having more women president, having more women occupying high positions in corporate, that still doesn't necessarily translate into a shift towards this divine feminine.
Well, the question for me is this, all of that you're describing, what kind of consciousness is it a product of? So those things can happen without a transformation in our consciousness. And for me, the reason I started where I started, with this ocean of consciousness, with the fact that there is no Xhosa, there's no Zulu, there's no man, there's no woman, there's no white, there's no black, there's no South African, there's no American, and so on. The reason I start there is because the fundamental shift that must happen is spiritual. We must stop seeing ourselves as bodies. We are not our bodies. Women are not their bodies. Men are not their bodies. And therefore, the fundamental shift that must happen is a shift that is spiritual, which will deliver a shift in our consciousness. And the shift in our consciousness will deliver a new reality when it comes to how we relate to social constructs such as gender, race, culture, religion, and so on. So for me, the fundamental shift that must happen is spiritual.
How would you want people to understand the divine feminine wisdom, Gogo, in a practical sense? How would you want people to understand it?
First of all, let me go to a surprising place or person. Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein, at some point, I think it was in 1954. But there's something Albert Einstein said in 1954 that for me is very important. It is about creating wider circles of compassion. Because we exist in very narrow circles of compassion. We reserve that space of compassion for those who are like us, or even those who like us, or even those we like. So he talks about our limited conception of compassion as something limited by very small circles of compassion, limited for those or reserved for those who are like us. So the fundamental challenge, or one of the fundamental challenges for me, is the imperative to create wider circles of humanity, wider circles of compassion. Now, instead of talking about the divine feminine wisdom, let's go back to Babu Creed, the mother mind. What are the qualities of the mother mind? That's the question. And the answer to your question, in part, is that the world must mirror the qualities of the mother mind. An empathetic world, a compassionate world, a moral world, an ethical world, a world that is dominated by love, particularly love for those who are not like us. A world that foregrounds the humanity of all who are not us. of all who are not like us. Now, things like, for instance, the hyper-capitalism we are experiencing today, things like a world in which some of us are happy to rent a suite at the Hilton for life, while others sleep under a bridge every day, every night. Things like hyper-capitalism and this kind of world are not in concert with what we call the mother mind. The mother mind is nurturing. The mother mind is a loving mind. The mother mind is an empathetic mind, is a compassionate mind. The mother mind is a mind that believes and tries to act in accordance with the belief that, yes, the Bible, for instance, says, love thy neighbor as you love thyself. I am saying that is very good. But the mother mind demands more. The mother mind demands that you love your neighbor more than you love yourself. The man must love the woman more than he loves himself. The woman must love the man more than he loves herself. The Palestinian must love the Jew more than he loves himself. The Jew or the Israeli must love the Palestinian more than he loves himself. For me, the mother mind dictates a standard much higher than the standard of loving your neighbor as you love yourself. It dictates and demands the higher value and qualitative existence on the basis of which we must love the other more than we love ourselves. Primarily, I want us to live in a world where we all love the other more than we love ourselves. That is what the mother mind dictates. Now imagine a world in which we try to live like that and we fail. If we fail, we will still land in a better place than where we are at the moment. That is what the mother mind demands. And therefore, it demands that we as men must accept the fact that we have violated these sacred beings we call women. Patriarchy is a violation of these sacred beings we call women. No society can reach its full potential as long as patriarchy, discrimination against women, and other violations against women remain a part of the human condition. In fact, humanity will never reach its full potential as long as patriarchy exists, as long as the different ways in which we oppress women and discriminate against women exist.
Wow. That was a true 360 from where we started the conversation and how we land now. It's a great challenge for humanity.
Yes, it is. What we must do is to ask God to bless us, all of us, with the wisdom of the mother mind.
We give thanks. We give thanks, Gogo.
Kamako.
The next episode, I want us to deconstruct God. I have so many questions. And after we deconstruct God, how do we relate with this God? What do these ancestors mean? And if we can relate with God outside of identity, how is it going to be? Because considering myself a Xhosa black African, when we say African culture, this is how we worship. So if we deconstruct this idea of God that you are presenting, how am I going to start to relate with this God? These are the questions that I have. If we take out identity out of the way, how do I relate with my ancestors? Because we're saying this is the African way. This is how we do it. This is how my forefathers did this. So I'm on their mark trails. But if you dismantle that foundation on which I stand, how now am I going to relate? And how different is it if I move to Phuket, Thailand, if I move to Guatemala? Do I bring what I know, how I connect, how I worship, how I partla? Those are the questions that I have. And on the next episode, I would definitely like us to talk about that.
I'm ready to do that. And I will traumatize you less.
Please.
In that discussion.
Yeah.
And maybe I should end with a reminder and maybe an apology. Because I suspect there are many I have offended today. I did not mean to.
Yeah.
When I leave a conversation, feeling I have offended some, I don't say I don't care what they think. For me, that I did not offend them intentionally is not important. What is important is the fact that they are offended. So for that I will apologize and then make an invitation. Once you have reflected on what you heard, all I ask you to do is to think about it. Maybe upon reflection, you will land in a place that is different from where you are now. maybe you will land exactly where you were at the beginning of this conversation. That is fine, as long as you take the time to meditate and reflect on what I was talking about. Tamako.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's how we come to the end of this episode, this conversation. I hope you have enjoyed it and found it as insightful as I have. Please make sure that you subscribe to the channel on YouTube. CEMEX Network is the only way we are going to be able to bring you such high level of conversations. And we continue to ask life's biggest questions. There's no right or wrong in this platform. We are quizzing, we are opening up and exploring, and maybe hoping that we'll get to those ultimate levels of consciousness. I am CEMEX. Kamako.